There is a moment that most Erling Haaland fans have never heard about, and it happened the day before one of the most important performances of his entire early career. He was 17 years old. He had shown up to training with Molde FK, and for the entire session he could not hit the net. Shot after shot missed. He was angry at himself, frustrated in a way that would make most teenagers walk off the pitch and question everything. His coaches watched and said nothing because they knew something he was still learning, that the struggle in training and the explosion in the game were the same energy pointing in different directions. The next day, Erling Haaland stepped onto a football pitch against Bryne, the best team in Norway at the time, the league leaders and clear favourites, and scored 4 goals in 17 minutes. The Bryne players, in the words of one of his coaches afterward, still looked seasick from it. Birth, father, introduction. To answer that, you have to go back a long way, all the way back to a hospital in Leeds, England on the 21st of July 2000, where a boy was born to a Norwegian father who was, at the time, playing his football in the English Premier League. His father, Erling Haaland, had built a career that took him from his hometown club Bryne FK in Norway to Nottingham Forest, then to Leeds United and eventually to Manchester City. He was a combative, reliable midfielder and defender who made 187 Premier League appearances and represented Norway 34 times. He was not a superstar. He was the kind of player who made the stars around him function better, dependable, aggressive, technically sound. Erling and the Keane incident. But Erling Haaland's career came to a violent and premature end in a moment that English football has never fully stopped talking about. In a Manchester derby, Manchester United captain Roy Keane flew into him studs first in a challenge so deliberate that Keane later wrote in his autobiography that he felt no remorse for it whatsoever. The tackle caused damage that effectively ended Erling's career. He never played a full match again. He was 30 years old. Statistics. That is the thing about Erling Haaland that no statistic, no highlights reel, and no record-breaking headline quite captures. The numbers are absurd. 319 goals in 359 professional career games at the time of this video. 36 Premier League goals in a single season, smashing a record that had stood for nearly 3 decades. A Champions League scoring rate that no one in the history of the tournament has ever matched. But the real story is not the production line of goals. It is the question of how a player like this actually comes to exist. What produces a machine like Erling Haaland? And why does it seem like no stadium on earth, no defense in any country, and no tactical system designed to stop him has ever been able to do so for very long? Family genetics and Bryne upbringing. The family moved back to Norway, settling in Bryne, a small, quiet town of around 12,000 people in the southwest of the country, where Erling had first learned the game. For young Erling, growing up there meant growing up with the rhythm of football always in the background. His father's career, his father's stories, his father's discipline, and his father's understanding of what it actually took to compete at the highest level. Erling did not push. Those who knew the family describe him as calm, never interfering in sessions or on match days, never the overbearing sports parent. He simply let his son develop, but the mentality he instilled, the willingness to work, the appreciation for teammates, the understanding that individual brilliance is always built on collective effort, those things seeped in quietly the way the most important lessons always do. There is also something else worth mentioning about Erling's family. His great-uncle is Arne Larsen Økland, the greatest player in Bryne FK's entire history, a man celebrated across that part of Norway. Speed is in this family's blood in a way that is almost unfair. His mother was a track and field athlete. His father was one of the quicker midfielders in the Premier League during his time. Erling inherited all of it, but nobody knew quite yet what that combination would eventually produce. First coach at Bryne FK. His first coach, Alf Ingvar Berntsson, remembers seeing Erling for the first time at 6 years old in an indoor training session. The first thing he did was score 2 goals. He spent the next several years at Bryne FK developing in mixed age, mixed gender groups, rarely singled out or pushed into any particular system or position. Berntsson was deliberate about this. He gave Erling time to grow naturally rather than packaging him toward any one outcome. What he noticed more than anything was not the pace or the finishing, though both were obvious early. It was the fearlessness. Whether he was playing with friends on a Saturday morning or pulling on a national team shirt, the level of the occasion did not seem to register to him as something that should cause anxiety. He respected his opponents, but he was never intimidated by them. Early development senior football at 15. By the time he was 15, Erling Haaland was playing senior football for Bryne FK's first team, facing adult opponents in Norway's second division. He was tall and thin, still growing, still waiting for the body to catch up to the instincts. He did not score that season, but that almost did not matter because scouts from across Europe had already begun to circle. The movement, the runs, the intelligence in the box, it was all there. His body just needed time to match what his brain was already doing. First coach's philosophy. His first coach in Bryne, Alf Ingvar Berntsen, spent nearly a decade watching him develop from a 6-year-old scoring 2 goals in an indoor session to the most feared striker in the world. When people ask him now what the secret was, what he did to produce Erling Haaland, he answers the same way every time. He says you cannot create a player like that. What you can do is build an environment where someone with those gifts is allowed to grow without being pushed into a box too early. You give him time, you trust the process, and then you watch what happens when the boy who smiled a lot, trained a lot, and scored a lot finally gets the stage he was always going to end up on. Molde FK and Solskjær. That next step came in the form of Molde FK and the chance to work under a manager who understood the art of developing young strikers better than almost anyone on the planet. Ole Gunnar Solskjær signed Erling Haaland for Molde when he was 16 years old, and from that moment the transformation accelerated. In Molde, in a city of only 32,000 people nestled next to the sea on Norway's west coast, the skinny teenager from Bryne began to become something else entirely. He grew 8 centimeters across his 2 years at the club. He worked with the fitness staff every day to build the frame that could handle the demands of the highest level. The club's nutritionist, known to everyone as Tanta, monitored what he ate and how his body responded with an attention to detail usually reserved for elite athletic programs. He sat in the back of team buses on trips, not playing cards or joking around, but reading scientific articles on sleep patterns and recovery. While teammates wound down after games, he was already thinking about the next one. Senior debut and the Brambergen callback. And the results of that investment arrived suddenly and completely. On the 1st of July 2018, with Molde facing league leaders Brambergen away from home, 17-year-old Erling Haaland came onto the pitch and scored 4 goals in 17 minutes. The day before, in training, he had missed everything. That afternoon, he annihilated the best team in the country in less than 20 minutes. His coaches say the Brann defense looked physically stunned by what had happened to them by the time the final whistle blew. By the end of that season, Haaland had 16 goals in 30 league appearances and was named the best newcomer in all of Norwegian football. Leeds United, the city of his birth, came in with an offer. He turned them down. Red Bull Salzburg. He had set his sights on something bigger, and on the first day of 2019, Erling Haaland joined Red Bull Salzburg. For the first 6 months, the adaptation was difficult. The level was higher, the pace was quicker. He featured in only a handful of matches, and then at the Under-20 World Cup in Poland, something snapped into place. Under-20 World Cup versus Honduras. In a single group stage match against Honduras, Erling Haaland scored 9 goals in a 12, but because it confirmed to him exactly where his ceiling was not. Salzburg explosion under Jesse Marsch. Under new manager Jesse Marsch, who immediately identified what Haaland was capable of and handed him the keys to the attack, the goals came in a torrent. 6 goals in his first 4 league matches of the new season. Then his Champions League debut arrived, and in a single night against Genk, he scored a hat-trick. He went on to score in 5 consecutive Champions League matches, a feat no teenager in the history of the competition had ever managed. By the winter break of that season, he had 28 goals in 22 appearances, including 5 hat-tricks. The Austrian league had run out of things to give him. The world's biggest clubs were not just interested, they were competing. If you are new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe right now, because every week on FIFA First Touch we cover the careers, the defining moments, and the untold details behind football's biggest names. Stories like this one, from a teenager missing every shot in training to becoming the most lethal scorer Europe had ever seen. This is exactly what we do here. Hit subscribe, because the Dortmund chapter is the one that turned Erling Haaland into a global phenomenon. Borussia Dortmund Dortmund announced Haaland's signing in January of 2020, and his debut remains one of the most spectacular moments in modern football. Dortmund were losing 3-1 away at Augsburg when Haaland came off the bench. 3 minutes later, his first touch produced his first goal. 14 minutes after his introduction, Dortmund were ahead 4-3. By the 23rd minute on the pitch, Erling Haaland had scored a hat-trick, 3 shots, 3 goals, 10 total touches of the ball. He became the first player in Bundesliga history to score 7 goals in his first 3 league appearances, doing it with just 8 shots across those 3 games. His first Bundesliga appearance, his German Cup debut, his Champions League debut for the new club. He scored in all 3. Nothing like it had ever been seen. What followed over the next 2.5 seasons in Germany was the construction of a record that should have been impossible. 85 goals in 88 matches in one of the most tactically demanding leagues in European football. In the Champions League, he became both the youngest and the fastest player to reach 20 goals in competition history, averaging a goal every 70 minutes, a rate that was ahead of both Messi and Ronaldo at that stage of their respective careers. His brace against Sevilla in the round of 16 of the 2021 edition was the performance of a player carrying an entire club on his back. He won the DFB Pokal that season, scoring twice in the final, giving Dortmund their only trophy of his time at the club. He produced one of the most iconic goals in the yellow and black jersey's history with a gravity-defying scissor kick against Schalke that looked like something designed specifically to be watched on repeat. And through all of it, his teammates noticed the same thing, that what happened in matches was only possible because of what happened in the hours before and after them. Reading, researching, recovering, preparing. The obsession was not only about being good, it was about being better than he was yesterday, every single day. Manchester City, signing and doubters. But even the Bundesliga could not hold him forever. In the summer of 2022, after Bayern Munich's dominance had denied him a league title in Germany, Erling Haaland joined Manchester City. He was 21 years old, and the conversation in England when the signing was announced was not what you might expect. There were genuine doubters. Critics who wondered whether a player defined by direct runs and power could thrive in Guardiola's possession-heavy, intricate system. Pundits who said on television that it would be outrageous to expect him to win the Premier League Golden Boot in his debut season, that it simply was not realistic, that the Premier League would be the challenge that finally exposed something in him. First City season record-breaking. His first Premier League match was against West Ham. He scored twice. His first 5 Premier League matches produced 9 goals. By Christmas, nobody was talking about adaptation anymore. By the end of his first season in England, Erling Haaland had 36 league goals, smashing the all-time Premier League record of 34 set by Alan Shearer and Andy Cole. Across all competitions, he scored 52 goals in 53 appearances, leading Manchester City to a historic treble: the Premier League, the FA Cup and the Champions League, the first treble won by any English club since Manchester United in 1999. In the Champions League alone, he scored 12 goals in 11 matches, including 5 in a single game against RB Leipzig, making him only the 3rd player in the history of the competition to achieve that feat. Pep Guardiola, a manager who has worked with Lionel Messi, with David Silva, with Kevin De Bruyne, called him a gift for football. He was also the fastest player in Premier League history to reach 10, 20 and 25 goals in the competition. And if you are still watching and have not subscribed yet, now is the time. What is coming up next, including the story of what he is doing right now with Norway, is exactly why this channel exists. Hit subscribe and stay with us. Second and third City season. His second season at City produced 27 league goals and a 4th consecutive Premier League title for the club, something no team in English football had ever achieved before. In his 3rd season at Manchester City, something shifted in Haaland's game that moved him beyond the category of prolific striker and into something harder to define. He finished with 34 goals in 48 appearances, but more remarkable were the 24 assists across competitions, proof that the player who had always been described primarily as a finisher was now making the entire entire team function better, not just himself. Guardiola spoke about it openly. Haaland had learned how to make the team play. He was no longer just the end product of other people's work. He was becoming the architect of it too. He reached 100 goals for Manchester City in 105 matches, one of the fastest scoring rates ever recorded in modern football history. He scored in 10 consecutive matches across all competitions, equaling Lionel Messi's record for the longest such streak. He became the fastest player in history to reach 50 goals in the UEFA Champions League, needing just 49 matches, compared to 66 for Messi and 51 for Mbappe. At 25 years old, he already sits alongside Thierry Henry in the all-time Champions League scoring charts, and the gap between where he is now and where the record sits keeps closing with every passing month. Norwegian national team. And then there is what he is doing away from Manchester City with the Norwegian national team. When Haaland's father was playing international football, Norway were a genuine force in European competition. They qualified for the World Cup twice in the 90s and produced players who competed at the highest level across European club football. Then the talent dried up. Norway missed World Cup after World Cup. The country fell off the radar of international football's highest conversations. Erling Haaland is in the process of single-handedly reversing that. In the current European World Cup qualifying campaign, he leads all scorers with 12 goals, and Norway have been nothing short of terrifying as a team, scoring 29 goals in just 6 matches. With a goal difference so large, it is the biggest recorded across any World Cup qualifying group on the planet. Against Moldova alone, he scored 5. When he plays for Norway, the team looks like a completely different proposition. He gives them belief that it is possible to compete at a level nobody associated with Norwegian football for a generation. And with the 2026 World Cup in North America coming, all signs point toward Norway qualifying for the tournament for the first time since France 1998, with Haaland leading them there. The boy from Bryne, born in Leeds, raised in a town of 12,000, forged in Molde's gymnasium and Salzburg's pressure cooker and Dortmund's yellow wall, has become the most efficient goalscorer in the history that will eventually be one of the most discussed in the history of football. You are watching it happen in real time right now. Legacy and greatest goalscorer debate. There is a question that runs through every generation of football debate, the one about the greatest goalscorer the sport has ever seen. For most of the last 2 decades, that conversation has started and ended in 2 places. But Erling Haaland is doing something genuinely unusual. He is forcing his way into that conversation at 25 years old, not by the accumulated weight of a long career, but by the sheer velocity of what he has already achieved. No one has scored as fast in the Champions League. No one has broken into a new league and immediately shattered its oldest and most protected records the way he did in England. No one in the history of professional football has produced a goal every game at the rate he has sustained it across multiple countries and multiple competitions. If you want to be here for every chapter of it, hit subscribe so you do not miss a single one, and let us know in the comments, is Erling Haaland already the greatest goalscorer football has ever seen, or does he still have something left to prove? Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one.